for the beautiful district of Red Bay. Good morning, Philip. How you doing?
Good morning, Sandra. Very nice to, of course, hear about your acumen in terms of your pickleball. Delightful. Happy to hear that possibly our future, some of our future leaders are going to be tackling you on that. I love sport, and I'm happy to
Yes.
hear that. First of all, I'd like to say good morning to all
Yes.
of
Good
the
morning.
good people in Red Bay, all of the people in Cayman Islands, and thank you, Sandra, for having me on this program.
Yes,
Give me an
absolutely.
opportunity.
Yeah, well, this is your first time, so warm, cold hard truth welcome to you. I'm sure that you probably watch the show on occasion, so you have a feel for how we do things here. You know, we're just very straightforward and honest, and we appreciate any candidate, quite frankly, that decides to join us, because I know that sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating. So thank you so much, Philip. We really appreciate it. So you kind of threw in your hat into the race for Red Bay. I must tell you, I was surprised when I heard it. I was like, oh, really? Okay. That's interesting. What made you decide to run?
Well, Sandra, I'm probably as surprised as you are.
Hmm.
I've been obviously in the periphery of politics in Ireland for the last 40 years, never being a runner, but certainly being someone who's been in the background of many camps, and I've supported many of the people who have gone through in the past. And this time around, after looking at the lay of the land and the persons out there who are offering their services, and with great encouragement from those who um, know me and know me well, I've decided to put my hat in the ring, so to speak.
Mm.
Um, Clearly, we have gone through a period of the last 4 years where the governance has been not at its best. And certainly, with the vacating of this position by Mr. Alden, Sir Alden, and absolutely the opportunity for five brand new candidates now to come in, I'm one of those. And I wanted to say, first of all, to my fellow candidates, congratulations as well. Um, Clearly, we are in a time of significant need in the country for fresh faces and a fresh approach. And I certainly appreciate all the candidates who are putting their hats into the ring and to show what they have and what they have to offer. And then, of course, it's going to be to the good people of Red Bay to make the final decision. But I believe that my candidacy is well placed to have a significant experience, as you know, where I spent 20 years in the public
Hmm.
service. And then for the last 20 years, I've been an attorney at law. Both in reality, in my view, service based country entities in which I've spent considerable time serving my country within the spheres
Hmm.
of being a public servant and now as an attorney. And I'd like to put that to further work,
Hmm.
further use by offering my services in Parliament.
Mm. Very good. All right. So we know why you've thrown your hat into the ring, so to speak. Any particular reason why you chose Red Bay? Do you live in Red Bay?
Well, that's always interesting
Hmm.
because, yes, I've lived in Red Bay for the last 30 odd years. I'm
Okay.
currently at Party Lane, where I've been for about 15 years. But before
Hmm.
that, myself and my sisters, you probably may be aware of that, son.
Hmm.
But we had a duplex, a triplex over in Whirlwind. And then my mother,
Hmm.
who you know as well, we had a house over in Victory. So we're Red Bears as much as we are, from anywhere else, and I love Red Bay. It's been my home. It's where I'm raising my family. I certainly have all of the issues here in Red Bay, and effectively suffer with all the issues here in Red Bay, like every other Red Bear.
Hmm.
Issues of traffic congestion, concerns about safety, concerns about our roads, drainage, which are, not unique to Red Bay, but certainly Red Bay, they play a large part of the issues here in Red Bay itself.
Hmm.
So I feel well placed to be able to say to my community that I understand the issues here. And as I've gone out and I've talked to people, I've been really well received. Sandra, one of the things that you probably
Mhm.
would appreciate, having been in public service for 20 years, where I finished off as a superintendent of police, and now the last 20 years as an attorney. Um, a lot of people know me, and it's interesting when you knock on doors and walk in, and they,
Mhm.
you're welcomed. Um, Not because you're there visiting as a politician, but
Mhm.
because they know who you are, and people
Mhm.
have some element of respect for what you've done, sometimes directly to help them, and then sometimes indirectly by the type of service that you provided.
Mhm. Wonderful. All right. We do have questions. Of course, the phone lines are open 936-2626. Mr. Phillip Ebanks, candidate for Red Bay, is here with us this morning. Mario Cardi has a comment, says anyone that is 65 or anyone that will be 65 in the next 4 years should be in retirement and not running for political office. How do you respond to someone who says, you've had several careers, why don't you go kick up your feet on the beach and enjoy your retirement?
That's a very interesting thing, and to some extent, I understand the
Mhm.
concerns about elder people contributing and whether they'll be able to have the energy to contribute and so on. And you have to
Mhm.
balance that, of course, against what they have to offer in terms of their experience and expertise. And
Mhm.
I'm balancing that. I'm still
You're
I'm
you're
not
you're
65,
you're a
and I'm
young.
not 65. I'm
Yeah.
61. And I believe
Yeah.
that I'm at a time in my life where I'm able to really provide the depth of service that people
Mhm.
require, the depth of thought on the things that are important to the country.
Mhm.
I think that sometimes we think of who will contribute, and we think of them
Mhm.
contributing because they have the youth, but sometimes they don't have the sort of level of experience in order to be able to seriously contribute. So
Right.
that's where I'm at. The other point I'd like to mention to the caller is that, unlike many people, I don't intend to be this career politician where I stay on for years and years. I would look at this as being, first of all, of course, if the good people really will have me
Mhm.
for 4 years and maybe 8 years. And then I want to create a avenue here where people can have some clear idea of what an MP should look like and how he should be and how he should act and
Mhm.
how he should perform, so that younger people can come in and not be, as we are in some cases where they don't have a good track on public life as yet, and they haven't yet developed their professional careers fully, whereby they can see, perhaps, take a little page off my book and say,
Mhm.
perhaps what I see from Philip is something that I admire, and maybe I'd like to continue in that vein. Sandra, one of the things that I've noticed here in my constituency, and it's probably not different than a lot of other constituencies, is that there's no constituency office here in Red Bay. And it's one of the things
Mhm.
that I put into my brochure that I want to have here and to continue it. And very importantly, Sandra, part of that is to make sure that we develop registers and know where people are that are in need of help. And it's not just going to be for me, because maybe I'm not the atypical politician, but what I would look for would be to put things in place so that the next MP, whoever that might be that comes along, he'll have some records. He'll have something to start with. He'll know where the people in Red Bay are that are really hurting.
Mhm.
He'll know where to get to them in terms of emergency, and of course the idea of having a constituency office which is not tied to whether you like or you don't like me personally. I think it's important.
Mhm.
I think it should be every constituent's office. It
Mhm.
should be Red Bay House, and that's what I want to produce, and that's what I want
Mhm.
to present.
Right. Very good. All right. So, because you've just started, you made the decision to run. Obviously, nomination day. I think was it last week Monday. Now the time is just flying by, so quickly. Have you had much opportunity to do any door to door and any canvassing so far?
Absolutely. I've been out in my constituency here, and obviously there's a lot more to go because there's close to 700 houses, and we've done quite a few, and we have more to go, and we're canvassing, we're doing some social media, and of course, I'm here with you, Sandra, so that people can have a look at me and
Mhm.
decide whether I'm the candidate that they would like to have to represent them in the in Parliament going forward. Um, so yes, the answer is yes,
Mhm.
and it's going to be more yes because I'm going to be out there doing more canvassing. Um, I'm 61 years old, but I'm probably at the healthiest point in my entire life, I believe,
Mhm.
because one of the things that we probably realize is that as we get a little older, it you need to pay more attention to that body that you were given, that
Mhm.
1963 or 64 body. It needs to be taken care of. And
Mhm.
I'm active in doing that. I'm in the gym 2 or 3 days a week, and I walk aside from that. So I feel I'm healthy as I've ever been, as ready and willing and prepared as I've ever been. And that's what I want to present, and that's what I plan to run on a very
Mhm.
capable, energetic individual who can serve,
Mhm.
who has the energy and background in which to have effectively. I think an MP needs to have a mind of his own, and
Mhm.
um, and not just simply be reliant on the others that may be there. And of course, teams are important. And as I go into to Parliament, there'll be alliances there with similar thinking minds that will be built. I've spoken to practically 90% of the candidates out there. And there's not
Mhm.
a vast difference between what I'm proposing and
Mhm.
what they're proposing. The difference is how do you get to yes on these issues? How do you find a way forward? And I've always considered myself as being a good, strong collaborator. I'm not easily flustered. I realize and recognize that the benefit of petulance is not very good for us. You need to just calm it down. You need to collaborate. You need to listen. There are a lot of good
Mhm.
ideas out there, a lot of people, well-meaning people, and you need to find a way to yes
Mhm.
in in those circumstances.
Right. So you've mentioned that you've spoken to, a lot of the different candidates that are running, and I'm assuming some parties. Do you have any alliances with any of the parties? Have you thought about, if elected, who you would be potentially working with? Are you open to working with anyone? Have you given anyone any sort of assurances that they'd get preference over somebody else?
Well, Sandra, we are in the middle of an election where the first order of business is to get elected, and you understand that there's 19 spots out there, and 19 constituencies that are voting to decide who's the best person for their constituency first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some parties, and there's very bright people in all the parties. Um, and I wouldn't have an issue with working with any of them or any combination of them. I think that at the end of the day, this is going to be a coalition government. I think the writing on the wall says that. And it's going to be more important that you ask me this question after the 30th of April, when we really see the lay of the ground and see
Mm-hmm.
who's there and what's available. Because the
Mm-hmm.
reality is between now and then, it's in the hands of the people. And my business would be to work as and push things as forward as much as I can and as quickly as I can towards helping to form a government for the people. We know the issues that are out there have been long-standing. Immigration issues are and opportunity issues are big on the Cayman agenda. They've been for a number of years. We have issues of housing that need to be sorted and taken care of. Education and the connectivity to opportunities is again another area where you hear individuals speaking of. You have kids returning from I say kids, and I apologize. Maybe I better just rephrase that.
Mm-hmm.
Adults who have gone away
Yeah,
to
young adults.
university
Yes.
and coming back to join and to contribute in their country. And then they're sidelined for sometimes 8 months in a year because we can't make that connection between sending someone away to school for four
Mm-hmm.
years and then bringing them
Mhm.
back into the workforce. That's really unacceptable. It's been unacceptable for a very long time, and we need to sort it out. I'm going
Mhm.
to say that it's going to depend strongly on the individuals and the strength of the individuals and the ability of individuals that enter parliament to keep pressing on those issues, because
Yes.
we must remember this is that, well, I have nothing against parties. Parties do have their own alignments and their set of objectives, and sometimes the party objectives may not necessarily align with objectives of the nation.
Mhm.
Independents can say definitively, my objectives are going to be the objectives of the nation. I'm going to press on those issues of housing. I'm going to press on making sure opportunity exists. I'm going to
Mhm.
press on making sure that Caymanians not only get the opportunity to go away to school and get education and find education wherever we can best find it for them, but they'll also
Mhm.
get the opportunity to come back and fit in within our communities and contribute.
Mhm. Wonderful. All right. So we do have some questions and comments that are coming in. So if you'll permit me to get to those, 9362626. The phone lines are also open for the duration of the program here as well. So Mario goes on to say Sherry Ann is his mouthpiece, more hurt than help. So I'm assuming he's talking about Sherry Ann Smith. What is her role in your campaign? Is she part of your campaign committee? Or how is Sherry Ann assisting you?
Well, Sherry Ann is someone that I actually met. I've known her for quite a long time. She assisted when we went forward in Sammy's campaign last time. And again, she's volunteering her services to assist me now. And
Mhm.
I appreciate Sherry Ann. I want to say this to people, and I want to say this to
Mhm.
everyone.
Mhm.
I think that we must learn as a country and as people to get to people and find them where you find them. Okay. Not wish
Mhm.
where you wish that they would be, because we're all different. And where someone would have something to say about someone and cast an aspersion on someone,
Mhm.
um, we should perhaps try to focus more the on the benefit of having differences in views, and understand that in this country that we're in, we need to find a way of working forward, and that's
Mhm.
what I'll be concentrating on. And she's been absolutely a great assistance to us, and particularly within the community, because Sherry Ann, like yourself, Sandra,
Mhm.
know a lot of people. In fact, the only
Mhm.
person I could think of that that I would like to have out there more canvassing with me would be you. So there we go.
Yeah.
It's about your connection to the community, and in different ways people connect with the community.
Yes.
And Sherry Ann certainly connects in this community, and I appreciate her as I
Mhm.
appreciate you, Sandra. And we need to march forward together. That's what I would say.
All right. This next question seems to be on a lot of people's minds. Mr. Relson was on earlier, and a similar question was put to him. So a lot of people are asking people if they're lodge members or part of one of these Freemason fraternities, whatever they're called. So Onila says, what is his stance on the known conflicts between lodge members and government? Everybody knows the majority of senior persons in government have a connection to the lodge, and that's why they get preferential treatment, whether it be in employment, contracts, awards, etc. Also, what is the stance on the lodge's oath and the government oath? Which one takes priority when they are at odds? Nobody wants to answer this. So,
Sure.
what is your response to this?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say, and I hold my hand on heart, that I am not a lodge member. I've never been. I know of people who are,
Mhm.
and I know of much of what is, broadly speaking, kind of public knowledge about how the lodge may or may not operate.
Mhm.
Um, and can I say that I know definitively of any set of circumstances in which a lodge member has gotten a job on the basis of being a lodge member. I don't know of any situation like that. There's people going to be maybe more in the lodge who might know more about that than I do.
Mm-hmm.
What I've always said about the lodge is that I don't 100% understand it, and I'm always very of entering anything where I don't really understand in
Mm-hmm.
totality. Whether it's running for politics and who you're aligned with as a party,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't understand it, then I'm really one of those people that I like. I'm a conservative person. I step back and I think and I watch, and then perhaps at some later date I might say, well, yes, I understand that better. But if I don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't enter it. And I'm not a lodge
Mm-hmm.
man. I'm not affiliated with the lodge. I'm not here to put any particular um, view forward for or against the lodge.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Shaka says a politician who's actually attempting to set an example of healthy living. Interesting. Something to definitely look forward to. So very good. Anthony says, is he family to Kurt Walton, the commissioner of police? He sure sounds exactly like him, almost AI like. I was
Mm.
away from my phone and came back to it and heard the voice and said to myself, Sandy changed the guest a while. So have you ever been told that you sound like Kurt Walton before?
Well, I don't think that Kurt would actually agree with me. He's going to say he's a lot better looking than I am and
Mm.
sounds a lot better than I look. But I have great respect for Kurt as our commissioner. I know he's really doing his best there, and it's not an easy job. I spent almost 2 decades as a police officer. So the police, I would say this, is that yes, we need to keep our fingers on effectively on their backs to make sure that they go forward and provide the service that the
Mhm,
country deserves. But they also require our support. They're vastly under-resourced in many respects, and we need to make sure that resources for safety and security in this country are met. Interesting about Kurt because he may tell you this, but when he was recruited in the BRAC, I don't remember what year that was, but I was an inspector of police at that time. So
mhm,
he's one of the people that I really I'm proud to have played some small role in that, and he is a decent man.
mhm,
He's trying very hard for this country to do his
mhm,
job, and I will certainly support law enforcement endeavors. One of the things that we're looking at here in the district of Red Bay is as to how we can play a role in enhancing security in this
mhm,
area. I want to place strategic cameras at various locations in the district because I believe that hardening, which is a policing term, by hardening the area against criminality, it
mhm,
means that there's less likelihood that those who are not so well-meaning will come into this constituency and do things. And if they do, we want to catch them, and we want to make
mhm,
sure that they're not going to continue doing that. So there's a lot of things there. I want to say that I look forward, if the good people of Red Bay will have me, to working, improving things. There's a lot of work to be done on improving safety and security, and I'll
mhm.
be an ally in that process.
We have a listener who's asking you to comment on the 17-year-old young Caymanian driver who was recently assaulted and accosted in his vehicle on a public roadway. Some of that incident was caught on, CCTV, private CCTV footage. And if you had any thoughts or comments about what has happened, specifically in response to how the police have actually responded to that as well.
Well, first of all, let me say that I had the bearers of views on. I saw it on one of the chat groups. I believe there was a bit of film, and the optics of it is very, very alarming. Absolutely, anyone in the public who saw that would be certainly be enraged. But also as an attorney, as a previous law enforcement I know that there has to be a process, you know. It's the only thing that we have, Sandra, is to have the rule of law, and for us to let that take its role. Obviously, there's going to be the investigation, I suppose, is going to continue, and that there, at the end of the day, there ought to be, if it's not satisfactorily fixed at the police level, then obviously there is the civil level as well, and I would expect for that to continue to play out until it comes to the logical and eventual conclusion, um, and so that we can then have the full facts of everything, and then maybe again it's a time to really have a look again. But I'm always cognizant of talking about things which are
Mhm.
early stage. There's a rule that I'm still an attorney at law. So effectively speaking of things while they're somehow in the judicial system or somehow in law enforcement, it's
Mhm.
something that's really frowned down on. And I'm not necessarily the person who's best able to speak to that at this point because of the reason that I've said. But I
Mhm.
do believe that at the end of the day, there will be justice in a way that we can all say yes. One of the issues at social media level is that the immediacy of social media does two things. First of all, a good thing that it does is that it raises real issues in real time, and I appreciate that. But also, it it's sometimes you're not able to get the full facts through it at that point, the full investigation, the full process. And it's that type of thing that has got to play out in accordance with the rule of law that we subscribe to. And so I want to be balanced in my approach on that. But
Mhm.
certainly from the optics, very alarming.
Oh, my apologies.
No,
Um,
I think I have two in the background there and they're taking me request this morning.
he's my personal doorbell. Young lady, I'm going to open the door so you can come in. Hold on. Check it and see. It might be open already. Yes, we live in such a safe area. Sometimes the door is left open. Right. So, okay, Zeus. I don't really need a door alarm. I must tell you. He
I
can.
know,
He
I
can.
know. They do a really good job at that, don't they? It's where you had two lions in there.
Absolutely. So strong will. Zeus. Strong Will says, good morning, Auntie. Red Bay needs some dreams and speed bumps. People are driving really fast down there. So any specific needs in the constituency itself that you hope to address?
Absolutely, absolutely. As I said, and I alluded to early on, the need for that constituency office, I think, is essential because it helps you to identify specific things within the constituency which need to be done. And also to help you to prioritize where first to do things. For example, Red Bay, this area, Prospect area, has always had a significant issue with drainage because it's low lying. Okay. Those are issues that we're going to need to tackle. We're going to need to have, and what I'm proposing to have is to have a structured program whereby you're rolling out the necessary drains, starting with the worst areas first over the next 4 years. And so obviously everything that we do requires money and budget. And so to roll that out over the next 4 years is not unreasonable given the length of time that we have for this. But certainly tackling in the strongest possible way those areas which are most deeply affected. There's areas there by the marina and in that area where school kids are walking knee deep and water coming, trying to get to school, trying to get out to the bus. And obviously, when you see that type of thing happening, it focuses your mind on where need is for drainage. Drainage,
Mhm.
a real problem. We're going to work on it. We're going to make sure that we keep the public aligned with whatever progress we're making in this. and
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we tackle those issues. They're long-standing Red Bay issues, and we want to
Mm-hmm.
tackle them and make sure we deal with them properly.
Yes. All right, Carrie Tibbetts Walton says, call me Philip. Plenty Brackers in your constituency. His parents and grandparents are in Cayman Brack, so you got a Cayman Brack connection as well.
Yes, yes. My eldest daughter is our mom is a Bracker, and certainly I have a great affinity for Brackers. I've done a lot of work up there as an attorney. Even back, and much of that starts from when I was a superintendent of police and visited there to do spot inspections in the Brack. So I have a great affinity with the Brack, the people in the Brack, and I'm grateful for all the support, kind words that are being said. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very, very much. So we do, and thanks, Carrie, for the support. I'm sure he knows exactly how to reach out to you. Let me just see here if we've got some more. I'm not sure which question Miss Brenda's referring to, but she says, you're right. I asked this very same question and it was ignored, but I'm not sure which question that is. Trisha, where the grass is green, 345, says the best answer you can get from this question is to ask the predominantly known names on the KY Lodge, which to ask you already know. Okay, so I think we're still on this Lodge website thing. All right. Somebody sharing the website. Shaka says, since you have experience as a police officer, how would you work towards changing policing in the Cayman Islands?
Well, I think that I may have alluded to my approach with policing is that clearly there are issues of resources and there's issues of systems. In terms of resources, we have as a government to ensure that our own security needs are met by making sure that the police have the resources that they need. As you look around, and even on a infrastructural level, some of the stations that we have are really not up to standard for today. You know, you go into a station, and if you've ever traveled abroad and gone into a police station, you see how police stations are set out resource wise. Sometimes I've been into stations where they effectively have a kiosk that you can go up to and you can lodge a complaint, and you can also get an immediate report of your complaint. In Cayman, clearly this is an issue of how people make reports. You go into a station, you make a report, and sometimes weeks later, you're looking to get the copy of the report that you've made. Well, we shouldn't have that. You should be able to go in, make a report, and get a copy of your report. For whatever the purposes is your report, you should get a copy of it, and it's that sort of thing that really I think is going to help us to have a better and enhanced view of how policing should be. You know, people get extremely annoyed with the lack of efficiency with police because a lot of it has to do with lack of resources. If we're going to have a good police service that we're all really proud of, we're going to have to invest into it and make sure that we get the type of service back out of it. You can't just say, you just can't be a kick and bag and say, oh, it's horrible. We've got to work with the professionals. And like any member of the public, I think it's fair for you to make complaints and to criticize the police where criticism is due. That's important and necessary, because if we don't get that criticism, we can't go forward. But in tandem with criticism, we've got to be able to provide, where necessary, the resource, where necessary, the direction. And I think that the Commissioner of Police wants to provide that service. And we will have to work with him to doing that.
So, of course, someone says here that doesn't the RCIPS have one of the biggest budgets? So maybe it's not a budgetary issue that they're dealing with, but it's other things. But we won't go down too far down that rabbit hole, but something to think about. We have some other comments.
I want to take the question because yes,
Yeah.
it's absolutely a tremendous budget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly where we are within government overall, is
Mm-hmm.
that the government has a significant budget. And part of that budget, and it is, as you probably know, a
Mm-hmm.
big part of every budget is now the human resource component of it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you start looking at the budget on a recurrent basis, the millions of dollars that go into budgeting, a lot of it goes to human resources. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always a live issue, right? We need to figure out exactly what the strength should be and how they should be going forward. But I also think that as we go along, and you're able to use more resources in the sense of computerized resources and other resources of that nature, um, you should be able to find a better way forward systematically of delivering the service. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
advocating cutting anybody's jobs or cutting the police or cutting public service. I'm just simply saying that we need to look at it overall to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how best to produce it at the best possible cost, because the taxpayers paying for this. And we need
Mm-hmm.
to keep our eye on that.
Yes. Well, Shaka says Caymanian recruitment, diversifying the force at more Caymanians and less foreigners. The Damien makes the following comment about the 17-year-old, saying the process from the start was not followed. That's the issue. Their bias and discrimination, classism. Mario goes on to say that white man should have been arrested long ago, and yet we've not heard any further updates from the police, which is one of my concerns, because obviously the RCAPS does know and they do realize that this was something that the community was very, very concerned about how it played out, very much in a public space. And we had a protest. We're starting a petition in relation to Larry and Linda. And so I would have thought, after doing, an initial one or two press statements in the immediate aftermath, my apologies, of the incident, to not have heard anything further since then is interesting, to say the least. And I would have expected that we would have heard something. Carrie has a question. Carrie says, question for Phillip. How will you help to represent the Sister Islands once elected and form a government? Basically, will you support who is, what is that word? Who is Darren up here? Oh, this caller has a lot of background feedback, so let's take them. Caller, question or comment for our guest this morning?
Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, Mr. Phil. Siobhan here. Question for you. I think an earlier commenter alluded to the lack of Caymanian participation in the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Given your experience, obviously you're no longer in the arena. Given your experience, and I do say over my very short life, I've actually seen a complete decline in the lack of Caymanian police officers. What do you think is the reason for that? And do you see any direct contributors that we could work on so that can change? I'll tune out and listen.
Well, for one thing, I really appreciate the question. And let me say, I think that the number one thing that you should do, and I don't know what constituency you'll be voting in, but it's a question that you should pose specifically to your prospective MP that you're going to vote for. Let me just say, from my perspective as being the MP for possible MP for Red Bay, is that everything that we can do to ensure that Caymanians have the best opportunity, whether it's in the public service or in private service, we've got to keep pressing on that to make sure that happens. We know that government has its own unique set of difficulties in that government does not go through the work permit process. And I think therein lies some of the issues that happens. Clearly, people, whether they're recruited in the police or recruited in general public service, are recruited on the basis of a contract. If they're not, everybody's on a contract, but non-Caymanians don't go through the work permit process.
Mm-hmm.
So therein lies a bit of an issue there. And remember that the public service is really under the governor's, it's the governor's area. And so we certainly need to push forward as MPs to try to get balance and to try and get equity in both the public service and in the private service to the benefit of opportunity for our local people, our Caymanians going forward. And that is what I will continue to do. I will do that, and I will use my best endeavors to bring that about. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to do that. Certainly the country is crying for this. This is not something that's new. And I think that a big part of how it gets done is by the persons you elect putting their shoulder to the wheel and moving things forward and being willing to do motions and being willing to talk and to collaborate and talk to the deputy governor or the governor about the real issues and how you see them and pressing on to make sure that Caymanians everywhere get the best opportunities. That's my view on it at this point. And I'm sure there are going to be people out there who have even additional ideas to that. And I'm an ideas person. I'm always willing to listen and look at other ideas as to how we can make things get to yes. Yes for the people of Cayman. Yes for the people of Red Bay.
All right. Shaka says, I'm not hearing anything about changing the culture of that institution, attitudes, biases, and lack of training. My apologies, in basic law enforcement. Carrie goes on to say that RCIPS in the BRAC is telling people to do their own statement and email it in. Well, Carrie, I've been doing that for years, and trust me, it's a much more efficient way, because if you go and have to give a statement where they're one finger typing, you'll be there all day, and they're still going to have typos and stuff in it. So you might as well type it up yourself and email it and then go in and sign it. Carrie goes on to say that we need quality police, not rejects from the Jamaican Constabulary / Army, etc. Ms. Pat says, how about improving the quality of policing in the Cayman Islands? How will you attract more Caymanians to the profession if they don't respect them or see the ad effective? Carrie says they have about $100 million budget. Mario says, Sandra, please do a poll on what the age limit should be for politicians. People like McKeeva are too old now. Shaka Zulu says human resources, meaning foreigners, police, and Caymanians. Somebody said I thought he was running for Red Bay. He is running for Red Bay. So Shaka says, Uncle Philip, there's a certain level of discomfort with your apparent alignment with the current policing that is in the Cayman Islands. Interesting. Damon says, how do you know what a Caymanian police officer looks like now? Many are, except for maybe FRU, which are mostly ex-military JDF. And Damien goes on, Mario, goes on to say, Damien, some are ex-criminals. Miss Brenda says they're not just from JDF, they're former security officers. All right, so I think we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole there. Gabby says there's a presence in the community. There's no presence, in the community, not even the community officers. I don't see them around the neighborhood anymore. When I was growing up, they would come to the schools, have fun days. Even the police ball, they don't do anymore. So maybe this is some feedback that someone needs to send to Kurt Walton and the RCIPS about how they need to be more visible in the community. Yes, sir.
Yes, and Sandra, you're absolutely right. The MP of your constituency should be involved in his constituency. It's issues like this that you would bring, that he should be aware of once he's your MP. You should be able to bring these issues, not necessarily, and certainly CMR is a good place to forum these things, but you should also have the option of bringing them to perhaps your constituency office and saying, I haven't seen this or I haven't seen that. What's happening? And that's where I want to become and be a part of a different constituency system and different type of MP. I'm going to spend my time in the constituency. Of course, obviously, if I am made a minister, then of course that will limit some of the time that I'll have in my constituency office. But I intend to be attentive to the needs of my constituency, to make sure that the things of the constituency, which is where you're first and foremost voted in to deal with, that those issues are sorted and dealt with in a timely and careful manner, to to make sure that the constituency gets what
Mhm.
it is supposed to get.
Mhm. All right. Someone has a query here. They say, do you believe in term limits for MPs?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the few questions that I can take unequivocally about the electoral system, because
Mhm.
clearly at this juncture we have the electoral system that we do have, and as we go into the elections, it's not of any benefit to really talk about changing and what the face of the electoral system should look like. I think that we need to take that up immediately following this election, and we've had 8 years of this current system. It's time to look at it. It has deficiencies. It needs to be resolved. We need to decide what it should look like going in the future. But certainly,
Mhm.
I think that term limits is really one of those things that I personally support. I believe
Mhm.
8 years as an MP is good time. That's my personal view. Others will say 12 years.
Mhm.
It's the, the- but I think term limits is really needed. When people become entrenched into any system, the longer they're entrenched into a system, um,
Mhm.
they the more they're likely to be become more bureaucratic in respect of that particular system.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, for myself, I know I spent 20 years in public service, 20
Mhm.
years as an attorney. What you don't want to happen is for whoever it is that comes into office
Mhm.
to lose the real will to get on there and do what needs to be done. Sometimes you feel that people hang around a bit too long because it's all that they know,
Mhm.
and they become very good at making sure that they get reelected. And I don't cast any aspersions about anyone for any other reason. But it's just a observation that I've made
Mhm.
over the years, and I certainly support term limits.
Mhm. All right, so we've got a few more questions, and then we're going to wrap things up here, folks, with Phillip Ebanks, who is a candidate for the District of Red Bay. So, local issues, says this person, crime and community. You've pledged to improve community safety in Red Bay, but crime has been an increasing concern island wide. What specific policies will you push to make Red Bay safer, and how do you plan to fund and sustain these initiatives? Would you support increasing police presence, or do you believe there are deeper social issues that need to be tackled first?
Well, I think the truth of the matter is a combination of all.
Mhm.
Clearly, there are community-related issues on a social level. I mean, there's kids, and one of the problems that we can see clearly is that when it comes to the ability for some families to get their kids into preschool, the cost of preschool is crazy. They can't get
Mhm.
the kids into preschool, and I believe that you need to look at the whole system in the sense of how do we develop and evolve as a community, as the Cayman Islands? And you just can't just point it to one thing. Certainly, law enforcement and more police presence is always welcome. Keeping your thumb on the back of your local community officer is another important point. To just to see what they're doing and that they're doing. Nobody continues to do things that they're not monitored on. The
Mhm.
MP needs to play an important role in that through the office in making sure some of these things are kept. You know, as an MP, I want to visit the Red Bay School and talk to the principal about what they want from an MP, first and foremost. And secondly, what is it that they see as being the most important aspects of helping the Red Bay Primary School to move forward. I mean, isn't that leadership where you take and you try to have the poor doing better and those who are doing well to do even better? It's what we need to do, and it's what I want to do as an MP. Um, Culture of policing is it's difficult because here we are. We're in a multicultural society in which we're, in a sense, the police are kind of a reflection of the people that they're serving. So this is not easy stuff. Okay, we have
Mhm.
to be thoughtful and we got to be careful because what we don't want to happen that makes things even worse is for people to all of a sudden become extremely divisive on
Mm.
issues. We got to keep people together. I firmly believe that that is why our country, even though it is not necessarily as inclusive today as it was years ago, I think it's the thing that helped us to develop to where we are. That we're extremely inclusive. And if you look around and you compare us to um, any other country in the world, I urge you to tell me of another country in the world or another island in the world that has what Cayman has. Sandra, I travel all the time. I love to travel. I go to look at things. I like to see how things are. And every time I come back, my heart is filled with pride
Mhm, mhm.
for this place, what we've accomplished here. We mustn't lose sight of that single fact. We must not take ourselves and say, this is the worst place in the world. Yes, we have issues. We need people to work on those issues. This is people business. It's not going to be solved per se by just putting parties. It's not going to be solved by putting pure independence.
Mm.
It's going to be solved by a combination of things. And I believe that we need to work together and find people who have the spirit and demeanor to accept, let it roll off their back when things are not necessarily said that are positive about them even, but to move forward in the interest of Cayman. And that's what I will do. That's what I will do.
All right. Final question then for you, Philip, before we let you go. Infrastructure and traffic. This one says the traffic problem at Selkirk Drive and Shamrock Road is not new. Successive governments have made promises, but congestion persists. What makes your plan different from previous failed solutions? How will you ensure that infrastructure projects actually get completed rather than becoming more political promises?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Those issues at those junctions are long-standing issues. There is a program to fix them. And certainly, again, ensuring that we vote the resources forward to get those things done is an important aspect of what I would be doing. You may have seen from other releases that I believe in what you call fair opportunity traffic lights. Um, and in some cases, some people will say, well, that's not going to make things go any faster for. And maybe it won't make things go faster, but here's what it will do. It will take the stress out of the junction that you're now experiencing. It will make the junctions more safe. You know, when you're out and you try and come onto Marina Drive and you're looking left and right and behind you, and there's two cars on both sides of you, both trying to get out, and there's three of you trying to get out there one time, you got a safety issue.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised that we don't have more fatal accidents in this area. But certainly, taking that out of the scenario, one of the things that you really recognize about traffic is that when you come to a traffic light, you relax a bit because you say, hey,
Mhm.
even if I'm here for a couple of minutes, I'm going to get an opportunity. Okay, it might be a long opportunity, but it's going to come, right? So I think that fair opportunity traffic lights will add, and that's one of the things that I'll be pushing for to ensure that we get a little bit of reprieve. The longer term, bigger issue of traffic is quite complicated because right now, as you can appreciate, everyone from the eastern districts come through Red Bay and onward into town. It's their daily journey, right?
Mm.
And the roads, there's only so many roads. So we will have some improvements by virtue of the layouts and how we deal with traffic lights and how we're able to structure the roads. But the big longer term um, plan for traffic and traffic congestion is much more involved than that.
Mhm.
We're going to need to look at things. One of the things that I've proposed and will continue to press on is to see that as we open lands to the east, you know, the new road's going to be going in there in the east. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. And as we open lands in that area, I'm hoping that we'll do that in a concerted way that doesn't only open a new road, but opens new land for more houses, more Caymanian houses, get in there on the early stage with government to purchase some of that land so we can keep a hold on the pricing of the land. And then in that virtue, for Caymanians, we can have a real redress in terms of the cost of housing, because cost of land is a major component. And if we're able to manage that and get that done right, it means that we'll basically be dealing with three things. We'll deal with housing, we'll deal with effectively cost of living, because if you can lower the cost of a house and keep that down into a good range, then you're lowering the cost of living. And thirdly, the issue of congestion. I think of it every morning as I come out here in Marina Drive, and I said, well, what if I just needed to get a service and I could turn to the left and go up towards Bodden Town in that direction, get that service. That means that a lot of people in that position would have that as an option. That would take some of the stress off the road. Also, the people coming in from north side and east end, if we develop communities and housing in that area, then we could also foster additional work and job opportunities. We could have government services more in that direction, more government services in that direction. Courts, what would be really good, I think, is to have a courthouse over there in that direction, so that people who are coming in normally from East End and North Side and Bodden Town will have other things that they could, other amenities there that they would use, rather than having to come into town every day. So I think that there's a combination of factors there. Also busing, we started the public transport board over 20 something years ago. It really hasn't moved forward, but busing and having a proper bus system is something that we need to really think of. I know people are wary about it because they're saying, I'm not going to move my car for that, right? But what they don't recognize and realize is that they've never seen really in these islands a proper bus system, marked, on time, clean, orderly. They've never seen designated bus lanes either, okay, where the bus gets the priority along those lanes for that period of time. And this combination of factors, I think, will kind of enlighten us. I don't think that we need to force anybody into a box, but certainly if you have a reliable bus system, even if you have your car, you may well say, well, listen, you know what? Today I'm going to take the bus. If you take off 25-30% of the people off because they want to drive the bus now and again, therein reduces the traffic load. You look at the traffic and you look at cars, and it's one person per car. So you have 1,000 people, 1,000 cars, 1,000 people. Okay, so therein lies the issue that we have right now. We have a cultural issue which is geared towards cars, rightfully, because we don't have a bus system. But these things happen over time. We have to have a vision for how we would like things to develop, and then we need to get people to collaborate on going forward. And it's not that previous politicians haven't had an eye on this, but I think that they may not have necessarily had the time to really think about it. And I think that certainly having me as one of the MPs will help in moving that forward.
All right. So, Mr. Phillip Ebanks, again, candidate for Red Bay, can you tell us how people can get in contact with you? What's your website and social media handles? And then, of course, we know that you have a launch event that's coming up. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your launch event as well.
Yes, Sandra, and I hope that you'll be there to stream that for everybody as well, or will interact with our social media team in terms of the stream, and it's going to be streamed. For those who want to get in touch with me, they can contact the campaign team at 324-9886, 324-9886, or they can email us at info@philforredbay.com, and it's Phil, PHILFOR redbay.com, in order to make contact with us. I look forward to the future opportunities to speak to good people in Red Bay and to talk to the constituents as we go along on this journey. I really value the opportunity to be here as a prospective MP and to ask for your vote. And I'm certain that there's other questions that you'll have for me, and I would welcome that opportunity. Again, our launch is on Saturday night, 7 p.m. at Mike Russ. Mike Russ is a traditional Prospect Red Bay site. You know that it's where many of the campaigns have been launched, and I'm so pleased and proud. And I thank Charles from Mike Russ. He's an open candidate, by the way. He's not somebody who is aligning with me but he's said it to me. He said, Philip, anyone who comes and asks, I will be happy to try and accommodate. That's his thing. He's not aligned with anyone, but I'll say this and his benefit and for the benefit of Mike Russ is that we're proud of Mike Russ and the store and the community base. It's an example of what Cayman businesses can be. And I want us to just be so proud of the people out there who are making, doing their thing and serving their community in their way. And again, affording us this opportunity to be at that location. I appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you.
very central location. We do have one final question that has just come in. Philip, we don't shy away from the tough questions, and we encourage the candidates not to do so either. So this person has some strong comments. They said, keep me anonymous, please. Read Phillip Ebanks. Somebody needs to ask about all of his transgressions. They have here, beating women, leaving people for dead, the hell he gave people when he worked at DVDL years ago. He thinks that people forgot who he really is. Does his supporters know who he is? How do you respond to this criticism?
Absolutely. I'm happy to take criticism. I wish that I understood exactly what transgressions they're speaking of or which issues they're talking about at DVL. I certainly have honestly always tried to do my best. Have I been perfect? Absolutely no. But if the person said exactly what it was, then of course I might be able to respond more definitively. What I can say about management is this. Every good manager, I believe, wants to get the very best out of the staff that he has in whatever location. Because if he can't get the best out of the staff, then something has got to happen. And I don't know exactly why that's being said, but I certainly will tell you this, that I spent considerable time in management. I've always endeavored to try and find ways of getting to yes with my staff, trying to get them on board, trying to get them to buy in. Okay. And sometimes it's just not possible. Every good manager knows that. And at some point you have to say, I'm sorry, but I think that maybe this is not the place for you. And that's also very, very important. Your MP needs to also be real with you. He needs to be able to say, listen, I hear you, I understand your concerns, but this is not something that is going to happen. It can't happen, okay? Because he needs to have somewhat of his own mind. It just doesn't have to be there to the social whims and fancies because they blow all over the place. You want him to be real with you and to tell you what he honestly thinks. And that's what you'll always get from me. I'll always tell you, they will tell you transgressions. They will tell you some incident at DVL, but they can never tell you that Phillip Ebanks is not a straight talker. I've always been straight with people. And you can mount that as being a transgression or something that you didn't like because something that happened to you 40 years ago. What I will say to people is this. Whether you believe or you say that there's something that is negative about one of your possible candidates, at the end of the day, you will have known that person for considerable amount of time. You're going to have to weigh up whether your own personal issue with that person is going to trump other things. Because here's where I've always stood. I've always thought that I don't necessarily have to like everything about you, and you don't have to like everything about me.
Mm-hmm.
What I've always thought about it is in the overall overarching idea, is this person before me going to be positive towards the things that will help me and my children going forward? Okay, will they help future generations, or am I going to let my sort of personal feeling against them today for something that happened 20 years ago tell me, no, don't vote for him, I don't like him, never did like him, I'm sorry, explain this, explain that, I'm sorry. I wish that I was a perfect person. I wish that I was a person that hadn't experienced adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was, you know what happened to, that poor man, right, between the two crosses. You know what happened to him so many years ago. 2025, 2000 and what was it? Over 2,000 years ago. So there's no possibility of perfection. I will take this forward. And yes, even if you happen to be someone who you feel that I've done something wrong to in the past, what I would say to you is that you're free, obviously, to vote for whoever. But if you don't vote for me and I am elected, I will represent you too. Because that's what I do. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Mr. Linford Pearson in the comment section. Good morning, Mr. Linford. He says, good idea for government and the private sector to consider moving businesses to the eastern districts, which will have a significant effect on the reduction of traffic, having to travel to Georgetown for work, schooling, etc. Damien says negativity and bad attitude can bring down morale, work ethics, effectiveness, customer service. Carrie Tibbetts says nobody is perfect. People go through life in this country and some of us trip. Justice will be served said some people want to be privileged. He's a manager and he still talks facts. All right, Mr. Phillip, good luck to you. And we've got a campaign video here, folks, so stay tuned for this. And again, come out to his launch event.
Hi, I'm Phillip Ebanks. You are invited to my campaign launch on March 15th at 7 p.m. at the corner of Macross on Shamrock and Marina Drive. Come out to hear my vision for Red Bay. It's our community, our pride, our Red Bay. Be there.
Say this is the man with the plan. You cannot find a better man. All you people in Red Bay, vote number 1 on voting day. This is the way it should be. Vote for Phillip and you will see. This is the way it should be. Vote for Phillip and you will see.